The H-1B visa program, a key pipeline for skilled foreign workers in tech, has recently been upended by President Donald Trump. Recent executive order now mandates that companies pay $100,000 per application a move. The White House says will protect American jobs, but critics warn it could shrink the talent pool, raise costs, and push innovation overseas. So what's really changed? Who benefits the most? And how might this impact the economy? Hello, and welcome to USA Today's The Excerpt. I'm Dana Taylor. Joining me to unpack the latest with the H-1B program and the state of employment in the tech industry writ large is Daniel Costa, Director of Immigration Law and Policy Research at the Economic Policy Institute. Thanks for joining me, Daniel.
Thanks so much for having me.
Let's start with the changes. What were they, and was the tech industry prepared for this?
Well, the main change was a new $100,000 fee on H-1B visas, and there was a lot of confusion about which visas these applied to and which applicants they applied to. And it turns out, after additional guidance and clarifications from the Trump administration, that it applies only to H-1B visa applicants who are outside of the country and for only new H-1B visas. I must say, though, that there's still no process in place to implement this change in this fee. There's still no form. There's no actual way to do it, even though the fee is under the terms of President Trump's proclamation supposed to be enforced right now. So as of yet, nothing has really happened, but it's a big fee that's been slapped on top of the other fees that are already in the program.
I want to get a better sense of the size and scope of the program. If you can give me a 30,000-foot view of what the program looked like before these changes, how many people, how many companies, just sort of lay it out for me how big of an impact these changes might have on the tech industry.
Sure. There's somewhere in the neighborhood of 50,000 employers in the H-1B program, and there's a total population of about 600,000 H-1B workers, making it the biggest temporary work visa program in the United States. There are annual numerical limits on H-1Bs, so 85,000 new H-1Bs can be issued for basically for-profit companies, but there are also visas that can go to universities and nonprofit research organizations, which are not subject to that limitation. So last year, there were 141,000 new H-1B visas issued. And the reason the population is so large is because those can be extended for up to 6 years. And if one of those workers is in the process for a green card, they can be extended indefinitely until the green card is issued. And because of backlogs on the number of green cards, that's also caused the number of people who remain in H-1B status beyond 6 years to increase and taken the population to 600,000.
Now let's turn to the economy. These 85,000 workers, I know that the number there is in flux, but those who are brought into the United States to fill these jobs, they often bring their spouses with them, their kids, and their children attend our schools. These workers, they spend money in our communities. How might our economy be impacted by a drop in recruitment?
Well, the reality is that I don't think we'll see a drop in recruitment. I think we might see some behavior change. Who can actually pay the fee is really what's at issue here. I think the bigger companies that use the H-1B program, like the tech companies and some of the big multinational IT outsourcing firms that use the visa, are probably going to be able to afford the fee. But we'll see places like hospitals and universities not be able to afford the fee. So that may shift, which occupations are actually the H-1B is actually used for. And there are, a lot of spouses and of H-1B workers. They come on H-4 visas. Not all of them are authorized to work unless the H-1B worker is in the green card process. But I guess the overarching point I should make is that the H-1B program is a very important pipeline for bringing skilled and talented workers to the U.S. There's a lot of problems with the H-1B program, something I've written a lot about because of the wage rules, the way the wage rules work. Sometimes employers can misuse the program in order to undercut wages of U.S. tech workers, especially. But it is an important program that needs some reforms. But however, a $100,000 fee on everyone isn't going to fix those problems.
Daniel, there's also evidence to support the claim that H-1B holders tend to be entrepreneurial and they end up creating far more jobs than they take. What's the data say here, and what's your perspective on this?
I'm a little skeptical of those data just because H-1B workers actually can't start firms. They are tied to an employer, and so they can't start something on their own until they get a green card, and that takes a long time to get a green card. And we know from Labor Department data as well as Homeland Security data that the vast majority of the H-1B workers who are being hired are coming in for entry-level jobs. Something like 85% of H-1B workers were certified to work at the lowest wage levels, which are both below the local median wage. So that suggests that the program is mostly being used for entry level kind of IT work. I think there are some policy changes that are needed that could shift that so that we're bringing in the most skilled and talented workers. But when workers are coming in to fill those types of jobs, those aren't the types of workers who are building and starting firms. That's not to say that very skilled and talented people don't come in through the program. They have, and there are examples that you can point to of people who have started very important companies, but they can't do it while they're in H-1B status, and that's the problem. Those people, those innovators, need some sort of a path to a green card to be able to stay and start companies.
Some critics of the program say that it gives tech companies incentives to not even look for Americans for these jobs in the first place. Do you have a take on that?
Yeah, it's actually true that I agree with that. The Under the rules of the H-1B program, you do not have to seek and recruit U.S. workers before you hire an H-1B worker, and that means that employers can entirely bypass the U.S. labor market. It's a common misconception. People think that that's not the case, but it is the case. You can look it up on the State Department's website that states it quite clearly. And there have been bipartisan proposals to change that. Senators Durbin and Grassley have proposed the H-1B and L-1 Visa Reform Act, which has been in Congress since 2007, that would actually fix that and change that and make it into a much better program.
There used to be this unwavering faith among recent graduates that a major in computer science or computer engineering would guarantee a path to a lucrative career with starting salaries in the six figures. Now, graduates with those two majors are experiencing unemployment of 6.1 and 7.5%, respectively. That's according to a report published earlier this year by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. These are double the rates of graduates with biology and social science degrees. Is the H-1B visa program part of the problem here?
It is in this case. I think the H-1B visa program is being misused to bring in mostly entry-level workers, and those are exactly the types of jobs that new graduates in computer science fields should be filling. The very high unemployment that they're experiencing is making it difficult to get these entry-level jobs. And so if we just made some policy tweaks that shifted the composition of the people who are coming in under H-1B so that we shift it to the most skilled and talented workers who really are feeling labor shortages and being paid and treated fairly, shift the program towards that instead of having the program only have maybe 10 or 15% of those types of workers, then that would create opportunities for new graduates. That being said, we do need pathways for people who are graduating, foreign students who are graduating from U.S. universities. We need ways to keep those skilled and talented workers. I just don't think H-1B is the pathway for it. There are proposals out there. One's called the Keep STEM Talent Act, which would put people like that onto a path to a green card and allow them to stay. But unfortunately, legislation that leads to green cards for just about anybody is a non-starter given the makeup in Congress.
Daniel, do you have ideas for how the H-1B program or any other program might evolve to put the employment of American students in the tech industry first?
Yes, I do think that if you change the rules in the H-1B program so that the wage rates are higher up right now, you can hire workers at much lower wages than I think should be allowed. And that's something that the Labor Department could change. The Trump administration, in their $100,000 fee proclamation, directed the Labor Department to issue a regulation along those lines. I'd like to see it. I'm a little skeptical about the Trump administration's implementation of it, just given their record on workers and worker rights. They haven't done almost anything to push up labor standards. They've been doing just about everything to cut wages and working conditions for all workers, not just US-born workers. So I'd like to see that. They've also proposed a new way to allocate H-1B visas. It's done by a random lottery, and the winners of that lottery are the employers that pay the lowest wages to H-1B workers. If that's changed and that is successful, that would make a difference. And then there is legislation that's been proposed to do this. That's bipartisan. So those tweaks could really turn this program into something where U.S. workers have the first shot at the job, and then the workers who come in, the migrant workers, are paid and treated fairly according to U.S. wage standards. On top of that, I'd like to see a path to a green card for those workers so they can stay permanently and not be tied to employers and sort of in this quasi-indentured status where they don't have much bargaining power. But that would require Congress to do that.
If you had to pick a single leading indicator to watch over the next 12 to 18 months that signals whether this policy is having a chilling effect on the tech industry or whether firms adapt around it, what would that be?
It's going to be when we see the data of who actually gets the H-1B visas. Once we see if there's been a change and if those startups and employers outside of the major tech employers are not getting as many visas, then we'll know that there's been some change. Firms may adapt and behavior may change, but as of right now, we'll have to see how it's implemented. Which, like I said, people aren't even paying the fee yet, and the fee is going to apply to less than half of H-1B new H-1Bs. It's going to be something like 45%. So we'll have to see how behavior changes. Firms may shift to hiring H-1B workers who are already in the United States, which means hiring mostly people who are on student visas. So that may benefit some of the foreign students that are in the U.S. if the firms adapt their behavior in that way.
Okay, a lot to think about here. It's good to have you on the show, Daniel.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you covering this topic.
Thanks for watching. I'm Dana Taylor. I'll see you next time.